Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to establish connection with God. What we've done so far has been a prerequisite, stilling the mind, tuning the heart, getting you ready so that now you can broadcast. So you can send that message up to God and establish that contact. This is exciting. This is one of my favorite parts of all of this because I think it's something that we don't talk about a whole lot in the religious communities and spiritual communities. It's something that I certainly haven't heard people go into any depth on. I've had a lot of realizations as I've struggled in practice learning how to pray, and I'm excited to share them with you because I know it's going to help cut time and effort off of your connection with God. This is going to make it easier for you to get the results you're seeking. Last time we talked about how we're kind of like radios. We can receive signals. We tune in to the channel, we get the signal on that channel. That can be emotional. We can tune into anger, we can tune into love, but it's also spiritual. We can tune in to the channel that God broadcasts on and receive the Holy Ghost, receive the messages that the Holy Ghost is sending through that channel. So we are like radios, but we're also like transmitters. We're like radio towers broadcasting. We can receive a message, but we can also send one out. Because in the end, that's what prayer is, right? Like when you think about it, what is prayer? It's having two-way communication. It's easy to forget that, but that's what it is. So we need to know not only how to receive, but how to send. So this video today is about how to powerfully project yourself, to send a message, to be totally clear and conscious, knowing what you want, knowing why you're saying what you're saying, knowing why you're asking for what you're asking, having such a clear purpose that you can ask in great faith. So now we're ready to get the contact going. So we're going to go over today what you have to do in order to send a powerful message. Because, yeah, prayer seems simple. Two-way communication, right? All we have to do is talk to God. That's what we teach little kids. You say your prayers, right? But the devil's in the details. Just that phrase, saying your prayers, I hate that one because it sounds like you're supposed to be giving this rote recitation. And I know that you're probably like me, you've fallen into vain repetition sometimes, right? You're saying the same things, the same phrases, but maybe they don't have a lot of meaning in them anymore. When people say prayers over the food and they say bless the food, I'm always like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means, to bless the food. Are we trying to bless the Twinkies so that they don't give us diabetes? Because I don't know if God's willing to suspend natural law just because we're asking for it. I haven't known. And so I personally, I don't really bless the food anymore. I express gratitude for it, but I'm trying to make meaning be in everything I do. Because if someone came up to you every day and said, well, who's in my watchets? And you're like, great, what's that? And they're like, I don't know, it's just something we do out of tradition. You'd be like, all right, can you stop? So there's a big difference between saying some prayers and communing with your higher power, projecting yourself to stand in the presence of God and talk to Him one-on-one. Big difference between that and saying your prayers, from sending some words out. Because yeah, you can move your mouth and words can be coming out that could be intelligible to other humans, but that's not necessarily prayer if it's not that two-way communication. So the first thing that we're going to go over to establish contact with God is coming to oneness. What does that mean? Well, we've got our mind and we've got our heart, and sometimes they're doing things independently. And we still our mind, we tune our heart, but then we kind of have to do some syncing things up. It's like we gather all of our awareness as a human soul so that we can be ready to talk to God. Let me read a quote from Alexander Graham Bell that I love. Concentrate all your thoughts on the task at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. I once saw a video where they took some magnifying glasses basically, and they all focused them on one rock. Now, rocks don't melt unless it's really, really hot. like 3,500 degrees Celsius for some rocks, I think. And they took these magnifying glasses with sunlight and put it all at one point, and it started to melt the rock. And the amount of sunlight that they were using, not much. It was the amount of sun that would hit like 3 people who are sunbathing. 3 people can lay there and get a tan. But if you take all of that and concentrate it into one tiny point, you could melt rocks. That's pretty focused. And our mind has such an ability, if we concentrate, to achieve things, to get things done. But normally we're all spread out, we're diffuse, our attention is not in one place. We try to talk to somebody, but we're thinking about something else we want to be doing. We watch TV, but then we're checking our phone. We talk to God, but we're thinking about our grocery list. We're really weak and feckless if we're not concentrating our mind. So when you can take all of your awareness and put it on one point, that's when cool things happen. That can be such a struggle because we haven't really practiced concentrating. It's kind of like flexing a muscle you didn't know you had. It's hard. You have to like work at it and get good at just being even aware that you're doing it, choosing to do it first of all. And that's part of why I gave you meditation already, because through that process, you're going to get good at flexing and strengthening your focus, and you're going to be able to just be on one thing and not get distracted. I was struggling with this concept once, and I went to the temple to ask God for his input, like, how do I do this? Because I pray and I just feel like scattered. Like I'm trying to talk. I don't know. It was kind of like the party analogy. You know, I'm trying to talk to him and there's all this noise around me, there's music and people talking. And no matter what I was trying, like I was scattered. And so I was asking him, like, Heavenly Father, can you help me with this? Like, what should I do? And something interesting happened. I had a vision. And this wasn't like I'm carried away seeing this 360 Technicolor thing. It was just an image in my mind's eye. It was just like I was imagining it myself, but I wasn't creating it. And what I saw was a bunch of shards of metal, all broken and spread out. And I saw those shards come back together and melt down and form one molten sphere and cool off, so that all those fragments were solidified. And as I received that image, I understood what he meant. My concentration spread out to 1,000 different things, and it was up to me to pull each one of those things back in, put them all together, and reforge it into a single focus. It works. Next time you find yourself feeling scattered, try to do that. Notice what your brain's on. If you're thinking about Netflix and what you're going to watch, be like, okay, I'm definitely going to think about that later, but for now I need this little bit of me back. It's almost like a part of us is scattered, like our awareness is gone out of our body on something else. So you bring it all back and you come to oneness of your spirit. That's how you muster your focus. And this is the type of concentration that brings power. This is the kind of focus that I personally believe you need if you're ever going to pierce the veil and literally stand in the presence of God. You're going to need to get good at being present where you are. So in coming to oneness, you're going to need to muster that focus. Now part 2, once you've got the focus, is to have something to do with it. Like you need intention, you need a reason. You can use your magnifying glass to focus all the light, but what are you going to do with the light? So your intention is what you're doing with that. And that really, as you'll see, is the essence of prayer. Or at least the essence of sending and talking. So I want to read a quote from a book. This thing has caught my imagination since the first time I read it. It's by Betty J. Eady, and she had a near-death experience. And she was seeing people's prayers from the earth going up to heaven. And she said, I saw the sphere of the earth rotating in space. I saw many lights shooting up from the earth like beacons. Some were very broad and charged into heaven like broad laser beams. Others resembled the illumination of small pen lights, and some were mere sparks. I was surprised as I was told that these beams of power were the prayers of people on earth. I saw angels rushing to answer the prayers. They delighted to help us and were especially joyful when somebody prayed with enough intensity and faith to be answered immediately. They always responded to the brighter, larger prayers first, then each prayer in turn, until all of them were answered. I did notice, however, that the insincere prayers of repetition have little, if any, light, and having no power, many of them were not heard. I was distinctly told that all prayers of desire are heard and answered. When we have great need, or when we are praying for other people, the beams project straight from us and are immediately visible. So some prayers are like powerful laser beams that project a message clearly, and some are just sputtering sparks you can barely see. Some have the power to march boldly into heaven and ask for what they need, and others are just repeating vain repetitions that don't have much meaning. If you've been feeling like your prayers are a little weak, you may want to look at what your intention has been behind them. Why are you saying your prayers? Are you saying your prayers? Is that your intention, to say them and have them done so you can check a box? Or do you pray because you want to commune today with God? So how do you get your prayers to be powerful and have intention, and be like laser beams that shoot straight up into heaven? I think Star Wars can help us with this. So, you ever been sitting on the couch and the remote control is out of reach and you're like willing the remote control to fly across the room into your hand? Of course you've done it. Of course you've done it. I've done it. I still do it. Let's be real. We still wish we could move things with our mind. When you're doing that, you're really focused. You have an intention. All that you're thinking about is like, remote control, fly into my hand. You can do this. And you're wanting it. You're like, it's like you're gonna burst a blood vessel or something, right? That's intention. You're doing the same thing when you try to move your body. You can look at your finger and be like, wiggle. Come on, wiggle. I wish you'd wiggle. Just wiggle a little bit. Or you can just do it. There's a difference between wishing for something and commanding. So maybe you've had this experience too. You're laying in bed and you're trying to fall asleep and your brain is going crazy and it's thinking about all of your worries and everything you need to do tomorrow and everything you didn't do today. And you're laying there for hours and you're just frustrated because you know you need to sleep. And the longer you stay up, you're like, geez, I only have like 6 hours left and I need those 6 hours so I can fall asleep. And then you still can't fall asleep, right? You've been there. But have you ever gotten fed up with it where you're just done? You are so fed up with your brain that you're like, stop. We're done. No more worrying, brain. We're going to sleep now. And within just a couple of minutes, you've drifted off. Have you done that? If you haven't, give it a try. It really takes mustering all the intention of your soul, though. You have to want it. It's like your brain is lollygagging. It's like a 2-year-old or like just a kid playing, and you tell them to do something, and if you're washing the dishes and you're like, hey, clean up your toys, they're probably going to ignore you. But what if you get in their face and you grab their chin and you're like, I need you to clean up your toys right now. There's a difference there, right? If your kids aren't listening to you, you're not using your full intention, and they know it. They can feel it. That's part of why kids disobey. I'm like, stop it, stop it. You're not going to do anything about it, so they don't care. So you can command your soul to come to attention. You can command yourself to fall asleep. Your brain is yours to control, remember, and it takes work to learn to build that up so that you can make yourself fall asleep. But it's totally possible, and you can do really cool things with intention. It's like, I met a guy once who had the ability to wake up whenever he wanted. He would like set this internal clock in his brain, and people would bet him. They're like, okay, wake up at 2:37 in the morning and then come wake me up. And they checked, and he had no alarm clocks with him. And he's like, okay, you're gonna have to give me like a 5-minute window, maybe like, okay, 10 minutes, like on the front and the back, because it may take me a minute to do it. But 2:37, okay. And that night, he woke up right around 2:37, and he woke him up, and he's like, look what time it is. You can make yourself do really cool things. I remember we got a kitten when I was like 12, and I wanted the kitten to sleep in my bed. But my parents are like, okay, but don't roll over and smash her because you could kill her. And I was terrified by that thought. And so my little kid brain, I was like, I cannot roll over. I must sleep on my side and not move. And I set an intention so powerful that I did not roll over the entire night or any night thereafter that the cat was in my bed. I told my brain to do it and it did it. And to this day, I'm really good. If I want, I can stay in one place. I do not sprawl out on the bed or roll over. When I roll over, it's all in place. So you can train your brain to do this. You can train yourself to get that intensity and be like, we're praying right now and I am focused on that and that alone and nothing else. The word intention itself, when I say it, it's like it tingles. It tingles my ears. It glows with significance and meaning and power. There's something magical about that word. And I like the definition too. It's from, I believe, the Old French. Yes, that's right. 13th century Old French, from intente. That's an Italian accent. Forget I said it like that. But the definition is goal, end, aim, purpose, attention, application. And it comes from the Latin word meaning to stretch out, as if to grasp something. So your intent is what you're trying to physically do. It's like picking up the remote control. If you intend to pick it up, you do. Intention is doing. Yoda was right about do or do not. There is no try. It's not about thinking about it, like I'm trying. No, do it. Just do it. Get up and do it. That's having a powerful intention. So before you pray, you are stilling your mind, you're tuning your heart, you're bringing yourself to oneness, calling back your attention, being focused, and that's part of meditation. But as you come to oneness, you are now gathering your intention. And what's your intention in prayer? Number one, it has to be to connect with God. Because if you just intend to talk to Him, then that's all you're going to do. You can just send off a message, like sending a letter. You write it, you forget it. When you pray, you're expecting to be talking to Him with this active feedback. And we're going to talk more about that in the next video, how you can really hear. But for now, you're just getting your intention ready. Intend to connect first, and then the second part of your intention is just the message. What do you want to say? What do you want to ask for? So far, we haven't used any words here. This is just an inner thing where you're desiring it, you're focused on it with your mind and your heart. So what about words? What are words in the first place? You thought about this lately? A word is just a set of sounds and symbols that we have decided will represent something else. Pick any word. I mean, apple. I say that, and we've agreed that apple's going to mean this red fruit that comes from a tree. We already agreed on that, but the sounds are meaningless, and go to any other language, and they're probably not going to recognize it, because they have another set of sounds that are symbolic for that concept. So when we're using words, we're taking, ideally, this is what we're supposed to be doing, things inside of us, things that we want, forgiveness, relief. It's a thing we want, an experience that we want, and we've put a tag on it, we've labeled it as this thing. But what we do in prayer is we disconnect the symbol from the actual thing it represents, and we just use the symbols. And so we can start out a prayer and say, thank you for this day. But what does that mean? What is that tied to in your soul? Are you really meaning to say, I am grateful that you have allowed me to be alive, to work and to accomplish things. You've lengthened out my mortality. Is that what you meant? Because if I catch myself saying that, I'm usually on autopilot, and it's just words. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't mean anything. Your words have to have something underneath them. The words are like a body, and your intention is the spirit. And when those are separated, the words are dead. They don't have any meaning and significance. And God doesn't want to hear you walk up to Him and recite something that has no meaning. He wants to talk to His child. So don't cause like a weekend at Bernie's scenario with your words. Make sure you're using them because they are vivified and full of life, that they have intention and meaning, that they're a representation of something inside. That's magical. We have these desires inside, these feelings inside. And we want to express them to God. And so we turn them into these symbolic words to like carry them. Words are full of this meaning and power, or they can be. So I know I've used the magnifying glass in a couple of contexts already, but let me give you yet another metaphor for the magnifying glass. The intention in your soul, what you want to ask for, what you want to receive, what you want to express, that's the light. The words are how you focus that. It's like you're turning it into something like a package. You're packaging up the stuff. And you look in the scriptures and you realize that when God creates, he uses words. He commands. And those words have meaning. They have an intention behind them. He speaks and then it happens. Jesus says, "Peace, be still," and the storm calms down. He was holding on to the intention of what he wanted to have happen when he said those words. So those words conveyed everything that was inside of him. Now, putting our inner experience into words can be a challenge because we typically want the same things and we don't often think about them, but we want safety every day, so we pray for safety. The challenge is always to remember what you're doing and why. And if you are going to use the same phrases, which is totally fine, just make sure there's something behind them. So is this making sense? The words are just the representations. They're the packaging for the intention. The intention is the spirit, the words are the body. You put them together and you have life. So as you're saying your prayers, you're probably going to be asking for the same sort of things every day. I ask for safety every day because I want safety every day. The challenge will be to put the meaning into the words. And so whatever you can do to remind yourself, hey, this matters. We're praying. Try it. I mean, you can try praying in different places. I have a prayer rug from when I lived in Saudi Arabia. And sometimes I will lay it down on the ground and kneel on that, just to give me a ritual to help me to really focus my mind and make sure that I'm saying what I mean. Sometimes I have to sit there and stop and not say anything because I have nothing in my heart to say. I have to wait. It's a nice way to get yourself aware and to reset yourself. Another thing you can try doing is visualizing what you're asking for. See it in pictures. And then try to turn that into your intention and your will. Sometimes what can help you to really be focused and present and connected to God is having some pressure. One of the times this happened to me was when I was on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to Phoenix, Arizona. I was one of the missionaries with the bikes and the name tag. And one of the members of the church there asked us to give them a blessing. And they asked me to give a blessing. And if you're not familiar with that, with the priesthood, we have the ability to lay our hands at someone's head and give them a blessing as if from God. And the priesthood holder's job is to listen to the Spirit and receive the message, and then say the words that God wants said, acting in the place of Christ as if he were here ministering to the people himself. So it was a tremendous responsibility, and I'd only given like one before, and it was to a family member, and it didn't feel as big or scary, but these people were facing like a serious health challenge, and they wanted answers. And here I am, 19 years old, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I just had I was going to give it to him the next day, and that 24 hours, holy cow, I prayed like crazy. I don't think I've ever been so focused and just please, please, please help me. Let me know what you want me to say. And when I finally went to give the blessing, it was so clear. There was no doubt that I was receiving the will of God. But that only came because I had that intention inside. I really wanted it. And I asked him for it. And he said, ask and you shall receive. Why don't we receive all the time? The intention isn't there. When our prayers are weak, they don't get answered. Then we can get angry and start blaming God. It all comes back to us first. Now, maybe you don't have the priesthood, maybe you don't even believe in priesthood, so that wouldn't work for you. But imagine what it would be like if you did. Or imagine something from your life. What if someone you loved was on their deathbed? How would you approach prayer differently if you were pleading with the Lord for their life? You'd be pretty focused, wouldn't you? I like to use these scenarios sometimes to remind myself what I'm doing and why it's so important, and to really get me centered. If you want to practice praying with powerful intention and getting good at that, you're going to want to watch the homework video, because I've got an exercise in there that's it's wacky and it works. It's really cool. So far in talking about coming to oneness in our soul, we've talked about focus and intention. Now, we're going to move on to one of the biggest blunders that people make when they pray. This one thing, if you forget this fact, it's going to be awful hard to focus and have intention. If you forget that you're talking to a real person, you're going to struggle. This happens all the time. All the time. We think of God as some magical, powerful being who lives in the clouds or something, and it's not real to us. And so when we pray, it's like we're talking to a statue or something. It's not like we're talking to a real human being. There was a really interesting study done in Denmark where they took participants who prayed often, and they studied their brains, and they had them pray, and they looked at what was happening, and then they had them talk to Santa Claus. And completely different parts of their brain were on when they were talking to God. There was a social part of the brain on that is on when you're having a conversation with a human. But when they were talking to someone they didn't think existed, Santa Claus, there was nothing there. So that part of your brain is going to need to be on. That idea of like social contact and of awareness of another human entity with their awareness on you. If you're not remembering that God's a person and you're talking to him, regardless of the distance, your prayers are going to be pretty weak. One thing that I like to do in order to practice this is I sit on the couch and I pull up a chair and I put it in front of me, just an empty chair, and I close my eyes and I pretend like God's sitting there looking at me. Because you know what that's like. When you're in the room and you have your eyes closed and someone else is in there, you have a sense of them in your head. You can like feel their presence, even if they're being quiet. It's just like when someone's looking at you, you can feel their eyes on your back. Same thing, you want to go for that sensation of another person. It makes it way more real. It makes it way easier to have a conversation when you remember you're actually talking to a person who can have a conversation with you. So this brings us to step 3 in our quick steps for connection with God. We've got still the mind, tune the heart. Now, number 3 is feel his awareness. You want to feel his awareness as another person being aware of you. So you're talking, you're praying, you're saying words, you're projecting your intentions, but first, you're feeling like he's waiting for you to say something. Sometimes to get ready for prayer, the most powerful thing I do is to sit in silence and not say anything for a minute. I heard a story once about this little girl who would sit there and she wouldn't pray until she felt him. Then she'd be like, "Are you ready? Okay." We have to wait until we have his attention. And we can have his attention as soon as we're ready. So it's really, of course, about us getting in tune. But do that. Wait. Get ready until you've established that mental connection of feeling like, okay, he's ready for me to talk. Oh, hey, how you doing? Start with that. Feel him as a real person. If you're experiencing God as a real person, then everything after that will be easy. Because you're going to remember who he is. And you're talking to him and not just some idea, some concept. You're not going to fall into vain repetitions because you're sitting there like, oh, he's looking at me. What should I say? It's going to be very real for you. Now, I'm not going to make an official homework video for this video. I'm just going to do it right now. This exercise is kind of wacky, but if you want to learn to be really good at projecting your intention, to having meaning and power in your prayers, then you're definitely going to want to try this. You're going to try to pray without words. Pray without words. How does that happen? You're going to be thinking in pure concepts. You're going to be feeling feelings, seeing images, having desires, but you won't use any abstract symbolic representations of those things. You're just going to use your intention. So if you want to thank him for this day, whatever that means to you, you're going to have to summon a feeling of gratitude in your heart and have the idea of existence, of being alive, and projecting that thankfulness to him. If you want to ask him for safety, maybe you visualize yourself driving to work with angels ringing your car to protect you. Perhaps you just have the feeling and sense of safety of everyone being watched over and coming home safely that night. If you need to ask for something that you are really struggling with, you summon that feeling of desire. And with your eyes metaphorically locked on his, so focused on awareness of him, you plead with the desires of your heart. That absolute focus. Doing this exercise can totally rejuvenate your process of prayer. Saying prayers without words gets you down to the basics that we're supposed to be doing every time anyway. I sometimes think that we would avoid a lot of problems in life if we didn't have words, because we wouldn't be able to hide behind them. We wouldn't have politicians lying to us and doing something else. We'd just be watching what they were doing and realizing what was happening. We wouldn't get lost and caught up in these arguments. We'd just know. We'd just focus on what is and what's real, and we'd be really good at sending those messages. It seems like in all the near-death experience books I read, people say that they often didn't talk. Everyone was communicating telepathically. And I think to myself, boy, I'm going to need to get good at that, because I don't want like my stray thoughts being picked up by somebody else. We can be so judgmental. We meet a person and we run through an inventory and I'm like, oh, I want to be like super aware of my intention. But I also want to really be good at expressing myself. So going through this exercise, it's fun. It's hard. This might be a real challenge for you. I don't have as rich and vivid of an inner life as some people. Maybe if you're good at visualizing and feeling, this will be easy. But it is definitely fun to focus all the energies of your soul on this thing. So start off, just connect that awareness that you have to his. Feel him being aware of you. Have that feedback loop. And then begin to pray. This is going to be really cool. This is a really, really cool experience. It helps to reset everything. It helps you to remember what prayer is at its most fundamental essence. So you're ready. You know what to do. Still your mind. Clear it out. Meditate until you're calm. Tune your heart to the right frequencies emotionally and spiritually to hear. And then feel his awareness as if he's standing there watching you, like you're talking to him face to face. And after that, you're ready, with all of your focus being brought to one point, to project your intention, to ask for what you want, and to connect with him powerfully. The next video, we're going to be going over how to hear when he talks back to you. Take a couple of minutes now, if you have them, and try the wordless prayer exercise. It's fun. I'll see you in the next video.